back to my channel. Today I will be sharing a recipe for a hearty Guyanese breakfast. We'll be preparing some bakes and saltfish, and we'll start by fixing up the bakes first. Here I have some all-purpose flour, I have some baking powder, yeast, water, salt, sugar, and some butter flavored shortening. Remember, you can use butter as well. You could use oil, ghee, any other fat agent that you like or prefer. So the first thing you want to do is add a little bit of your sugar to the yeast, then add some warm water to that. Warm water is very important. We'll mix and then we will set that aside, allowing the yeast to activate for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then we will combine the shortening into the flour. You want to work it in with your hands, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Next, you want to add the salt, the rest of the sugar, and the baking powder to the flour. You want to mix until well combined, and then we'll add the yeast mixture and the water to the flour, forming a nice soft dough. Once the dough is formed, we'll lay it onto our floured countertop and we'll knead for about 3 to 5 minutes, forming a nice smooth dough. Then we'll cover it and allow it to sit for about 30 minutes before we move on with the next step. Allowing it to sit is super important. You don't want to fry this right away. So after about 30 minutes, this is how the dough is looking. Now we'll go ahead and prep our bakes using one of these, and you'll need a rolling pin. But I'll show you 2 ways how you can make your, bakes or your little circles, your balls, whatever you want to call it. So you want to flour your surface first, and then we will place the dough onto the surface and release that air by kneading it a bit. Release the air that's inside of the dough, and then we'll go ahead and roll the dough out into about 1 inch size thick or a 1/2 inch thick. It depends on how thick you want your bakes. And then we'll cut them out with that biscuit cutter, cut the circles out. Once you cut it out, the dough has a tendency to shrink up. So what I like to do is go in with my rolling pin and simply roll it out back to the size that I desire. And I continue that process until I'm all out of dough. And then I will show you guys the second way how you can make your bakes by doing it by hand. Just pinching off pieces of dough, and you roll it up into a ball, and you simply roll it out with a rolling pin until it's a flat disc, and that's it. We continue that same process until we're all out of dough. In my preheated oil, I will now add the bakes in here. I'll add 3 at a time so as to not overcrowd my pot. And you want to keep your heat on low. Matter of fact, I had my heat on medium and I turned it down to low as soon as I placed the bakes in there, because you don't want to fry these on high heat. what'll happen is they'll brown up really fast and they would not cook in the middle. And you don't want that. You want them to cook all the way through, and you want them to have a nice golden brown. Another thing I like to do is go in with my spatula and scoop that oil over top of the bakes. It helps the bakes to inflate faster and give it a nice even cooking all the way through. So that's what I like to do. And once they brown up, I flip them over and allow them to brown up on the other side, and then I'll remove them and continue the same process until I'm all done. Once they're all done, this is how they should be looking. They are absolutely delicious and just perfectly cooked. Now let's move on to our saltfish. So here are my ingredients for the saltfish. I already went ahead and washed, most of that salt off. And I have some bell peppers, onions, garlic. I have some green onions, tomatoes. I'll be using a half of a lemon, some all-purpose seasoning, complete seasoning, and black pepper. So the first thing you want to do is boil your saltfish. You want to add some water to your pot, and you want to boil the saltfish for about 10 to 15 minutes. Then you want to drain that water off, add clean water, and boil it for another 10 to 15 minutes. Drain that off and wash with cold water. Next, you want to loosen that saltfish up. And you see here I'm using a fork to just break it apart just a little bit, not too much. And then I will squeeze my lemon juice on here just to get rid of that rank smell, or just to combat some of that salt a bit. Once we're done, we'll set this aside and we'll carry on with the next step. In my preheated skillet, I did add some oil, and now I'll add my aromatics. I'll add my onions, bell peppers, garlic, tomatoes, green onions. We'll give it a little toss, and then we'll add the seasonings here to flavor them up a bit. Now the seasonings I'm using, it's not high in sodium. It's very low in sodium. Basically, it's just for flavor, not for taste. Because the saltfish has a lot of salt, so you don't want to use anything salty on these. You want to go light on the salt. So I'm using seasonings that are not very high in sodium. We will mix the combine and we'll let this go for about 5 minutes just so they can soften up a bit. After 5 minutes, you want to add your saltfish here. Give it a good toss and let that go for another 5 minutes just so it can absorb the flavors from the seasonings and the aromatics. And lastly, we'll add our green onions, give it a little mix, and that's it. That's how easy it is to make this saltfish, and it goes well with bakes. You could have it with dal and rice or some provisions, whatever you like. It is perfect. It could go with almost anything. Now I will plate everything up and I'll show you guys the finished product. And here you have it, guys. A hearty, classic Guyanese breakfast. It's nothing like it. We have the bakes, the saltfish, and some fresh fruit on the side. A balanced diet. But let me just show you guys how perfectly cooked these bakes are. Outside is nice and crispy, and then when you break into them, it's so fluffy. And the taste is amazing. I really do hope you guys give this recipe a try. And if you enjoy my video, please give it a thumbs up, share it, leave a comment down below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for me. I will be leaving all my ingredients and measurements down in the description box, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Have a good day and enjoy!